spiritual connection and traditions. We thank them for sharing their cultures, spiritualities, and ways of living with the land in these places we all now call home. And I think this is really significant. May we continue to walk gently and respectfully together with each other. So now the best bit. Our webinar presenter tonight is Michelle Stowe, up early in Dublin for her sins. Can I tell you it's 6 a.m. there for her? And I think she's more of an owl than a fowl, actually. And she is herself a member of RPI. Some of you will know her from her excellent TEDx titled Empathy, the Heart of Difficult Conversations. And Michelle, I can tell you that I have watched that so many times. You could voice yourself out and I could do it for you, except without the Irish accent. Michelle was and is still, as she says, a teacher at heart and is now a restorative consultant based in the Republic of Ireland. So enough from me, let's get started. The session is being recorded for those folk who have signed up but have not been able to get here, mostly because their brains are so active with the floods. So Michelle, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marg. Good morning, everybody. So nice to get to connect in and say hello with this growing international community. I'm such a big fan of Marg's, have been for such a long time. So of course I jumped at the chance to do anything at all with her. And indeed I am a member of RPI myself, like I said. So, you know, it's gorgeous to be able to learn together. I mean, I'm thinking of the collective wisdom amongst us all here in the room. And today we'll try and harvest that and tap into that too. I'll also try and speak a little slowly with this Irish accent. Marg might remind me if I forget, you know, because I can, I can speed up. So the theme for our session is around that idea of growing a restorative team, and looking at perhaps the benefits and the importance and the impact of that within the school community. That's the work I do, I guess, the work I'm so passionate about, that I care about immensely. Like Marg said, I'm a teacher at heart. I still always think of myself as a teacher. I never planned to leave school or the classroom, you know, but I guess being on a restorative team in my own school, way led on to way, and here I am now, you know. I always say that, you know, those that teach learn the most, and that's definitely my experience, getting to work with teams, getting to teach about restorative practice, but to learn so much from the people I get to work with. And I'm sure today will be no exception, you know, this morning. So I might just, I love that idea of going gently with one another and compassionately, Marg. So we'll try and generate and bring that in today and this afternoon as well for us all. I guess one of the things that we're going to try and do is make our session interactive and relational, you know, as relational as we can, and tapping into that collective wisdom that we spoke about. So I'm going to open, as you would, you know, if you were in your classrooms or in your staff rooms or in the spaces where you work, with a little check-in. You know, we're going to integrate a couple of connect and reflect moments throughout our session. So in the first one, the connect and reflect moment, I'm going to invite us to kind of set up that tone, you know, for our session, and just to say hello to each other, you know, in small spaces. So, you know, we'll go into small interactive breakouts. In the first one, I'm going to invite you to consider your energy levels on a sheep scale. So I don't know, can you see yourself in any of those sheep? Any of those sheep feel like you right now, you know? I was about number 3 about 15 minutes ago, but I'm feeling great now that I get to actually connect in and see lovely faces and smiling faces. But where are you on the sheep scale? And of course, tapping into the prior knowledge like we would in our classrooms. What do you know about RP? What are you hoping to get from today? I'd imagine you've probably contributed a huge amount already. And those that have signed up to webinar sessions after maybe a day in work or school illustrates such a commitment to maybe relationships and to your own practice. And so I guess you know, I'd love to try and meet those needs as much as we could throughout our session. So what are you hoping to get from today? I'm going to use an interactive tool called Jamboard. We're going to try and use it. So let's see, stop this share. I don't know if you've ever used it before, but I find it really helpful to collaborate and tap into what's being shared throughout in the breakout rooms. And you'll still have access to this visual when you're in your breakout room. And you can also collaborate on it. So I'm going to share a link in the chat box. And when you click on the link, you will see this page, hopefully. And on the left-hand side, there are tools to collaborate. In the middle, you'll see a square, and that's the easiest one. It's called a sticky note. So I can pop in any comment I wish, and it lands there on the dashboard, you know. And it's a way to kind of support that equity of voice today, but also to tap into the community and ask any questions, share any comments that we wish, you know. So I'm going to pop that link in the chat box, and we'll see if you guys manage to join the Jamboard. And like I said, the first one, we're just setting it up, and then we'll use it strategically just a couple of times throughout our session. So if you didn't mind, you might click on the link in the Jamboard. Let's see. Great, yeah, so I see the majority of us have joined, super. If for some reason you're finding it hard or it's just not working for you, you can take a screenshot. You can take a screenshot of that. So like I said, I'm going to bring us in, yeah, there's a couple of threes there. I'm going to break it into small rooms now for a little connect and reflect. 3 minutes, tapping in, saying hello to one another, and then I'll bring you back if that's okay. And we'll use our Jamboard to collaborate and write any comments we wish. So I'll see you back here. I'll keep the time. So I'll see you back here in 3 minutes. Small groups, say hello, and we'll go on.
You go start. You want to start your video as well as you.
Hello. Hey. So it's doing that.
Sorry, I was still muted. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Sue.
Thank you, Tim.
There we go.
Sorry. Thank you. I'm Kirsty. Hi.
Hello, I'm Vicky. Sorry, I have just joined. I have no idea what we're doing.
We're in a breakout room.
Yeah, I gathered that, but I don't know what we're supposed to do.
I think if you go into the chat, there's a link to a Jamboard, and there's a picture on the Jamboard of all different sheep, and it's a check-in tool just to say, where are you right now in terms of those little sheep? And I just put that I'm a 5, so I'm a sleepy sheep at the moment. Can you see it?
I can't. No, I've clicked on chat.
So can you see? So if you click on chat, you see the link that's down the bottom. It says jamboard.google.com, etc.
No, I don't even have that.
Okay. All right. Well, it's sort of more just about having a check-in, so how we are, what we know about RP, and what we'd like to get out of today, I think.
Oh, okay. So have you guys started? Sorry, I'm just sort of.
No, we're waiting. We're waiting for you. You're right.
Okay, so I'm Vicky, and I'm probably sitting at about an 8 or a 9 this afternoon. I've just come from presenting restorative practices to our continuing teachers who are new to our school. So I showed them the little clip about Michelle, the 8-minute clip that talks about Lauren and rolling her eyes to heaven and empathy. So that was lovely. Yeah. So I'm quite invigorated and ready to learn more this afternoon.
Right.
Did you want to go, Sue, or would you?
Yeah. I've also just come from facilitating some training today, but in circle work. So a secondary school just down the road, and I've had 2 days in there, and I'm a bit invigorated and a bit tired, a bit sleepy. So I'm really good. I'm looking forward to this. I love Michelle's work and I'm really looking forward to hearing more.
So I said I was number 4, which was the sheep with the bucket on its head, only because I'm in ISO because two of my children have COVID.
Oh.
And so it's a bit boring. I'm really well, by the way. I think that I don't know, luckily I've been very healthy, and I think that being a teacher with maybe my immune system's strong, fingers crossed. But yeah, so, and I'm on the Sunshine Coast, and I'm not an expert at RP, but I have done my RP training, and yeah, it really shifted my teaching when I did it. So yeah, I'm just a classroom teacher, so I haven't really taught anyone else about it or anything like that. But yeah, I think it's really powerful and really important. And I know that our school as a team, like, are looking at how we can sort of get everybody on board. Yeah.
And don't ever say you're just a classroom teacher.
Don't say just. Never say just. You're the most important group. Absolutely. Yeah.
And if we had more teachers invested in restorative practices, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
I have done some stuff. I have done a little bit of stuff with the staff. So, like, we've been trying to get a little bit more of it and share that understanding and stuff. So yeah. Yeah.
Good.
I think, Sue,
I
was going to be going to one of your circle time trainings last year, but it didn't work out. So hopefully you do another one on the Sunshine Coast this year.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, which school are you in?
Pacific Lutheran.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will definitely be doing some. Yes.
Oh, excellent. Because I've been doing circle time for 2 years now, and it's so it's really good, really fabulous for developing those relationships and just the culture of your classroom. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah, at all levels, isn't it? And it's a really important sort of part of the picture, and for schools that are working restoratively, the building community and connectedness is a really big part of everything. Yeah.
Cool. Absolutely.
So I think I just saw that. What is that?
I'll return to main session.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to go with. They'll send us. We'll go back naturally in a few seconds, or you can just.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back, everybody. I probably cut you off mid-chat, mid-sentence. I seem to have a knack of doing that, so if I did, I apologize. But I guess we'll get a chance to connect in with each other as well. Sometimes it's a great sign when there's not too many post-its, because it means we're actually engaged in the chat. And of course, that's the main intention, But like some of you have shared here, what we know about restorative practice, of course, we know that it's based on relationships. They haven't always been key. And that idea of supporting us to, offer that equity of voice and to encourage that equal voice. I guess when we think about that restorative approach, and I guess the reasons we're all here after school, committing our time and energy to that restorative approach, just to share, I guess, a brief insight into the work I do myself, and perhaps many of you also do. As Connect RPI, I guess our mission is that idea of co-creating a relational school community. I'm going to chat to you a little bit about that, but in particular, accenting how a team can really be so supportive of breathing life into that intention when we think about that restorative approach, that relational school community. Indeed, I guess when I get to work with schools, I used to work in many, many schools, and I drive from school to school to school, but I was always doing kind of surface stuff, introductory kind of sessions. And now I work with a much smaller number of schools, but in a much deeper way around a whole school approach. And a team will be absolutely core and central to that. And I guess when we think about that journey, we're thinking about that, restorative culture, that relational culture, where our values, community, empathy, equity, equality, and our actions match, And that's, I guess, the work that I care about immensely and that I'm passionate about. And moving conversations in our schools, when we think about restorative practice, away from the idea of behavior management, sorting out behavior, tips and tricks to get the kids to behave, you know, and of course, thinking of it as a philosophy and a way of being, for ourselves as much as for the young people we get to work with. And again, a team will be central to that idea of nurturing relationships, as you guys mentioned in the Jamboard post-it, and creating that culture where our values and actions match, and doing that by design, doing that consistently and iteratively, not just hoping it happens, you know, but being very purposeful. And in my experience, again, a team being central to that. And the connected, you know, that restorative practice, you know, has its roots, as you all know, in Indigenous communities, and that idea that we are interconnected and profoundly relational. And so I guess trying to support a team to live that approach and experience it amongst one another, as well as to ripple it out into the school, is again the work that I do, and I'm going to chat to you a bit about today. And I guess, Dad, really interested also to hear what you guys are doing, or your experiences of working in your own context, whether it's a school or other, and with a team. When I think about the importance of an RP team, I guess that idea of that distributed leadership, you know, I guess one of the things around the misimplementation models, where we misimplement restorative practice or approach, of that top-down approach. This is what we're doing, you know, because I say so. And of course, trying to cultivate that distributed leadership is really important. And that again was my experience when I was a teacher in my school. And I kind of, as I was doing research in the area as well, but you know, we assembled a team where we were working together and trying to, you know, that idea of sharing that power, you know, what that lovely Martin Luther King quote about power. Power is the ability to affect change. And I guess enabling a team to be part of that change and growth within a school is very powerful. Mapping an implementation pathway. Again, one of the misimplementations is where we just train and hope for the best. We'll do a training day in September, and often, you know, you might have a great day. What I found, I used to do that, just offer training days in isolation. And I think you can plant really significant seeds there. I think that we can cultivate perhaps and support champions to emerge. But if we're looking for change and we're looking for growth within a school, we need implementation pathways. I'm going to share a couple of those today, but mapping that on purpose, and a team might be hugely essential for that, building that internal capacity. I guess in my old approach, again, a school might depend on me to come in. We'll have that restorative session when Michelle comes in, you know. And of course, what we're trying to do now, and what I'll share a little bit more about with you, is that idea of building internal capacity iteratively and over time. No more than when I began my own journey within my school. As we evolved, I mean, beyond the training day, trying to live it was very different. You know, the idea in a CPD session made total sense, you know, and yet when we're sometimes in our classrooms, or we go into that autopilot, or we have a punitive system that can usher us away in those difficult moments, we need that idea of building that internal capacity and reflecting together. For a sustainable long-term approach, you know. And when I work with schools, many schools initially, you know, might engage with a 3-year journey. I offer a 1 or a 3-year journey, but again, the first step will always be the team. And then if we decide when the time is right at a school directed pace, we will bring other stakeholders on board, which I'll chat to you about. But it's very much a long-term journey, and that's, you know, many schools like Marg, I'm sure, like many of you, have been on that journey for a long time. And again, a team really supportive of that, of building that capacity and that long-term journey, you know, knowing that it is a paradigm shift, you know, it's a shift, and that requires a lot of support, ongoing support. You'll probably know one of the key principles of RP in education is that accountability exists within a supportive environment. So when we think of that paradigm shift from punishment to accountability, and when we think about accountability towards a restorative approach, that needs to exist within a supportive environment. You know, we need to support people and equip people to engage in a restorative approach, if that's what we're seeking to promote, beyond the tokenistic, you know, a poster on a wall or a mention in a policy document, to actually live it and breathe life into it. I guess we need that. We need that ongoing support. And like I mentioned, a team might be really conducive to that. When we're thinking about, you know, who might be on such a team, what might such a team look like, sound like, feel like, you know, I'm going to share the 3 pillars of the teams I get to work with in a moment, but maybe thinking about the teams that you've been part of, or there might be an existing team within your school or organization. You might be thinking of setting up a team if there isn't. I guess for me, I'm always thinking about who is best placed in such a team. For sure, people who are willing to invest their energy and time. Absolutely, that's so important. Maybe they're passionate about it. I guess I was, when I again began with a training day, you know, and again, champions emerge from that, and then, you know, they may be huge agents of change. But I just, the minute I got trained in that restorative approach, I thought, oh, this is a framework or a language for perhaps on my best day what I might be doing. But I was very much connected with it, and I think that the team that assembled within my school, you know, were curious, connected. There was one of our participants. He was like, I'm cautious, curiously cautious, but invested in exploring it, and that was brilliant, because I'm so passionate about it. I can forget and just kind of like, you know, no, this is great. And it was wonderful to have somebody on the team that was a bit cautious and mindful of perhaps those other perspectives. You know, that idea of having a shared perspective within a team can be very important. But for sure, people that will invest their time and energy, because that's definitely what it requires. I guess a team, that idea of modeling, you know, Belinda Hopkins, another mentor of mine, like Marg is a mentor of mine. She says, if you're not modeling what we teach, we're teaching something else. So trying to model that restorative approach amongst each other as a team. So again, I'll talk to you about the mechanics of that, but we would meet in circle. We would try and ensure to honor that equity of voice, and indeed to implement restorative practice in that restorative way. But to feel it amongst ourselves as a team. So again, when I share with you the pillars and the mechanics, you know, one of the things that was very important to us as a team was minding each other, you know, being mindful of when we meet, how often we might meet, and when we meet it. It's 6 a.m. here. When we met, having, you know, breaking bread together, you know, having bickies or tea, you know, just trying to create that kind of homely environment for us as a team was really, really important. When we were thinking about the numbers, so when I work with teams, I guess it's very specific to a context, you know. What I often recommend is 4 to 10. And again, depends on the size of a school, you know, and sometimes less is more, you know, sometimes, you know, cultivating a team, when we grow to too many on a team, it can be sometimes hard to enable people to create that change, you know, or to free enough people up to gather together. In some schools where there is a larger team, what we often do is break up into subgroups, you know, so we might meet as a team and a collective, but then each in subgroups of 4 or 5, perhaps each subgroup might, when we think about implementation in a school, have a different role. One subgroup might work with visuals and displays around the school. Another subgroup might work with parents and guardians, and trying to focus and integrate them. I'll chat to you a bit about that later, but sometimes we form subgroups. But I usually say 4 to 10. Again, one of the key components of a team is coming together to reflect on our practice, building our own capacity first and foremost, and supporting one another. on our restorative journey, on our own restorative journey. And so again, what can be very conducive when we meet regularly for short periods of time, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, is having enough people in the room to chat, but not too many where we actually get to share and go around. So one of the things that we do is we create a professional learning community. And I'm going to talk to you about the mechanics of that in a moment. But, you know, they say 6 to 8 is the best number for a professional learning community, where we're coming together to reflect and share our practice. So again, depending on your context or school, you might think of your own team and who might be on your team. Having various roles, I think, is important. Having people who might be brand new to their teaching or to their career, someone who might be really established already within a school, someone who might have, you know, a leadership role, and someone who might, again, have in an Irish context, we have teachers and SNAs, special needs assistants or teachers assistants. Having people with mixed experiences and roles and lenses, I think, can be really powerful. One of the challenges when I work with teams within schools is a school will think strategically and think, right, we want our team to be just the leadership team, you know, so they assemble the leadership team, and that's who's going to be the team to implement restorative practice. In my experience, the challenge around that might be that often the team are centered around others, you know, getting other people to be restorative and how to cascade out. And we've missed the very important step of a team, which would be to develop our own capacity. For me as a practitioner, not as a year head or not as someone with a leadership role, but me in my own everyday practice. And I think that's really, really important. So thinking about who might be on a team or how we assemble a team, I guess is really important, and having that mixed experience and lens in the room for our reflections. Timetabling, again, that idea, when I've seen great success within teams within a school is where they've managed to structure something within a day or once a week or once a month, but having something scheduled in the calendar at a specific time is absolutely essential, because life is so crazy and busy and we chase our tails. When I assembled the team within my school initially, you know, I was a teacher in the school, and call to action, anyone fancy being on a team, initially was for research, and it was for 8 weeks. That was the initial invitation, and we ended up evolving our cycle week after our cycle after cycle. We did 4 cycles, but we actually worked together as a team on a weekly basis for 3 years. Every Monday lunchtime we would meet, because we really liked it. We were kind of developing our own practice, supporting one another to develop each other's practice. But, you know, the idea of having a space and time to meet was essential. And when I did my focus group with the teachers at the start, I said, how come, you know, you're really interested in joining a team? But we had our training day about 1.5 years prior to this, our initial training day. And there was really only myself and another teacher actively championing it within the school that I knew of, you know. And they said, you know, we love this session. We love the training day. But life's just so busy, you know, we're chasing our tails. There's so many other priorities. And so having a space and time specifically to meet, I think, was a huge enabler. Like I said, some schools I work with formalize that within a timetable, but that's not always possible, because, you know, school life isn't built to come and gather and reflect. So being willing to invest our time, whether it's an after school, a lunch before school, or however you might make that happen. But again, the team will be part of that decision, what would work best for them. But strategically meeting, I guess, is key. And also tapping into the idea of having team leaders, you know, as I'm sure you already know, but within our practice, what we do is we share that role. So we have at least 2 team leaders to kind of co-support each other. And I guess the different role of a team leader might be to find the venue or the time to gather, might be to communicate with, let's say, me, if I'm an external partner for a team, or with the senior leadership team, you know, to have somebody appointed for communication can be very powerful and very helpful. But definitely working with and implementing restoratively is really, really key, and enabling the team to be part of that change, you know. I'm going to share the mechanics of what we do in a minute, but first I wanted to pause and tap into what you are currently perhaps doing, or what you might be currently planning to do. Like, there'd be a reason that inspired you to come to a session titled Growing a Restorative Team, you know, and maybe tap it into that. So I'm going to offer another breakout, you know, just to kind of tap into that a little bit. So I'm going to shuffle up the rooms. So lucky dip, see who you get, but I'll just share with you our Jamboard again. So this is our previous Jamboard, and we were on number 1, as you can see at the top. We were on number 1 of 4. I'm going to go over, click the arrow. So we're on number 2 of 4. And again, I'll share that link in the chat box for us. So I always begin with a relational question. And again, no one ever has to answer anything. You're always allowed to pass, of course. But like you would in your classrooms, or like you would perhaps beginning a staff meeting or a collaboration, it can be really helpful to begin with a relational prompt. So again, I can see many of you are still on Jamboard there, but I shared the link in case you missed it. So who was your celebrity crush growing up? You know, whose poster would have been on the wall? I think I had Steven Seagal or something like that. Whose poster would have been on the wall? Or you can pass, you know, I don't know, I'm still thinking about that. And do you have an RP team in your school or organization currently, you know, Duran? What have you found from your own experience of teams, or what might be helpful for the growth of an RP team in your school or organization? That's the invitation to have a chat about that before we move on. So I can see, yeah, there's loads of us on the Jamboard there. Brilliant. So lucky dip this time. Recreate. Let's see who you get. And I'll keep an eye out here to make sure no one's in there by themselves. So just give me a minute in case there is. And I'll see you guys back here in 5 minutes, okay? A celebrity crush and your own experiences of teams currently.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Sue.
Hello.
It's only.
It's just. Oh, there you are.
Oh,
Hi.
video on. Hi, Sue.
Hello. Where are you guys?
We're at Mariba State High School.
Oh, really? How cool is that? Wow.
Where are you at?
I'm in Mullaney. So I'm in the Sunshine Coast, just up in the hills from the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah. Yeah. The last breakout room, we had a guy from the Sunshine Coast too.
Cool. And we've got Megan here as well.
Yeah, hey. I'm also on the sunny coast.
Oh, hey.
Oh.
We're everywhere. Yeah.
So who was on your wall when you were young?
I don't know, to be honest.
Your poster person. I was thinking John Lennon. I'm dating myself, I know. I was thinking, you know, Johnny Farnham. That's really dating myself.
I can't remember, to be honest.
Dean Simmons.
Oh, yeah, right. Yep. Definitely. So what was the other question we had?
Did you have a team?
What was it? Okay, so I'm not working directly in a school. Well, I am working directly in a school the moment. So maybe if I just hand that over to you for a start, you guys.
Yeah, do you have an RP team in your school? What have you found from your experience?
We don't at the moment. We've just started the journey. And the deputy principal here for student services, she's doing some restorative and I'm doing some restorative. But at this point, that's it. within our school.
Yeah.
We've had half our Hodge trained. The other half was supposed to be trained in February, but because of COVID lockdown, it didn't happen. So it's happening in July.
Okay.
But I'm hoping to get Margaret up here in May and look at it through a special education lens.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to move forward.
Yep. So have you, are you working in special education? Are you, Michelle?
Yes.
Yeah. So have you seen, where is that book? That's not that one. Oh, where is it? Oh, this one. Restorative practice needs. So this, have you got that book? Yeah, that's the one. So Nick Burnett and Margie used to do a workshop together about special needs, and that was a very interesting workshop. But,
yeah, I've met Nick before. He's a really good speaker too.
he is, absolutely. Yeah, and it's really great.
And I've bought some more resources, the working in circles and the visual cards, and I've got the bear cards, which I'm looking at the wall. But time to actually sit and unpack things. There's so many things I want to do.
I know.
Yeah, I haven't got time.
Where's the story in schools? So you don't have a team as yet?
No.
But that's where you're moving towards, I gather.
Yes, I hope so. And
Yeah.
I hope we'll be the leaders when it comes to modifying it for our children that have language barriers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's my goal. I want to be one step ahead of everybody else.
There are actually quite a lot of special schools down here in this area that I've worked with. I've just worked with introductory work, sort of more like, you know, in terms of PBL tier 1 work, and who would be really, really happy to support you. One is Caboolture Special School. So they and various other groups have developed resources, visuals to assist to go through that process with kids that are really, really non-verbal or are having difficulty processing language and all that sort of stuff. So look, you know, there's a number of schools down here. I think Claremont, is it? There's a school, a special school out near Ipswich. I think it's called Claremont. They also have been working with restorative practices for some time. They're very generous in sharing resources and ideas as well. So I think contacting, if you felt like contacting either of them, it might be really helpful.
No, that's awesome. Because I'm just at the beginning. I've flicked through this book, read bits and pieces, pulled bits out, and just ordered the other resources, which are still sitting in their packets over there. That's as far as I've got.
Okay. What about you, Megan? How's RP going in your school?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I work in a team with some heads of house, but we have a restorative, restorative practice across the school, which is P to 12. It's an independent school, and it's been growing over several years. So people are at different, different stages of their understanding of restorative practice and how they do it. But so this is about trying to find, that idea of moving it forward as a team and being in a better space to support staff across the school. So our roles as head of houses tend to be kind of where we're picking up the kids sort of once they've kind of crossed a boundary, whereas a lot of the time, if we have staff that are better versed in those restorative practices, then we can restore those relationships a little bit earlier and use them as a day-to-day classroom practice. And staff do try to do that. It is our principle, but obviously, building that capacity across the school is what we're after.
Yeah. So I work in Maleny in a small independent school up here called the River School. I just do a part-time role here, and I also have a training business, but we've been working with restorative practices for some time, and because it's such a small school, we've only got about 130 kids. So we've got a very small group of staff. So it does come down to 1 or 2 people to keep the momentum going. However, there's a lot of engagement with the staff. It's really,
Yeah.
really aligned with the philosophy with the school, which.
Welcome back, everybody. It's always a little less lonelier in here when I get to enjoy your post-its. Often the ones like the crush make me laugh. So good to hear. So we're still crushing on some of them. That's good. Handsome. So I wasn't sure what L was, but you know, it kept me curious, kept me guessing. And that idea, I guess, amongst us all seeking to that idea of rebuilding the culture and reestablishing that restorative approach, perhaps that restorative approach, the culture when our values and actions match. That's what I think of. And I guess, you know, supporting the team to reflect on, yeah, often we have our values in the school, we have our mission statement, and how our practices and policies reflective of that, you know, especially in our most challenging times, perhaps when we can get backed against the wall, you know. And I can see some of you are thinking about growing and building a team there as well, which is great. Leaf Gareth, okay. I don't know who, I'll have to Google that one. I don't know who that is. Hey Mark, how's and everybody, how am I speaking slowly enough, or how's the accent? Is it okay? Is it okay? Okay. So a couple of thumbs up. Maybe
You're doing just fine, darling. You'll end up to be an Aussie yet.
Fair income. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. That's a flashback to, like, sorry about that. It's like home-away flashbacks to 20 years ago. I'm sure some of you are like, oh, raising your eyes there. But anyway, okay, where was I? So I'd love to get to be an honorary Aussie, that's for sure. I always think of you guys as such crack, you know, you've great fun, a sense of fun and community is what I associate, you know, with you, Mark. But again, that Aussie culture, and it's great. We have, I think, a couple of people from New Zealand here today, and maybe America. How gorgeous is that international kind of connection? I'm dying to go to New Zealand too. So maybe tapping into what you were chatting about, I'm going to unpack this. I'm not expecting you to read this here visually, but there's 3 pillars to the work I do around a team. So often when I work with schools in that whole school approach, the first stepping stone will be, you know, assembling a team and then enabling a team to grow it throughout the school. So there's kind of 2 layers. I'm going to chat to you about the first layer, which involves 3 pillars. Oh, brilliant. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm not a great multitasker. I got distracted there by the chat box. But yeah, 3 key pillars, you know, and I'm going to unpack that a little bit. But I kind of work with schools. We call it a restorative us team. And basically, I guess the 3 pillars are nurturing our own practice first and foremost, which can sometimes be missed. I think when we think of, we might rush into the team. Okay, here's the team. We're going to grow it for everybody else, and really kind of being focused on the self and our own practice first and foremost. Secondly, it's that idea of co-learning, co-supporting our own restorative journey, which I think is really important for capacity building. And then that idea of ongoing mentorship, you know, that's the kind of what I offer when we work with the teams, and what you might think about, what would that look like for your context? If you guys were assembling a team, or at least sharing that maybe that might be an intention of a team, and how you bring it to life perhaps will be specific to your context. But you know, that idea of establishing a distributed restorative leadership team. So I offer a program, it's like a 20-hour program. But the reason why I say that as well is because sometimes schools, and we think about a team, we want that kind of, well, that, you know, we have the team or that one and done. And I'm saying, well, the team need to invest time and energy into developing their own practice and supporting one another. And maybe that might be one of the initial intentions of a team. And to focus that. So again, just to give you a sense of that first pillar, the individual. So we look at, I offer an individual course called Restorative Me, but of course it doesn't have to be a Restorative Me course. It could be one of Marg's brilliant books. It could be you know, a training day that might be near you. Something that's going to be developing our own practice, I think is really, really key. inviting the team. Let's say when I was sure, I didn't have that restorative me course when I began, you know, and we assembled a team, but I had trained as a trainer, you know, at that time, but I was very new to it, and my initial naive idea was, I know, you know, with what evolved into the team, what initially I thought, well, there's 8 key ideas, so we'll do an idea a week and then, you know, move on to a different group within the school. And sure, the reality was so different, really, to try and live the practices and you know, understand the paradigm shift. We needed that ongoing support to deepen our practice over time. So, for example, as a team, we journaled, you know, I mean, not for everybody, you know, but in my experience, it can be a big support, you know, that idea of just being reflective on my own practice. I guess what I feel is important, whatever avenue it is, but to focus on the self and my own practice first and foremost, so I can then, of course, give and nurture others. But that idea of individual learning, the second pillar that I promote when we work with a team is that idea of co-learning, co-mentoring. I'm going to share with you a little handout, you know, it's a booklet. It may or may not be helpful. So, but I'll share it with you because I hope it would be helpful. But it's basically just guidelines around that second pillar, which is the most important one in my experience, or in my opinion. And pillar 2 is that co-mentoring, and that idea of that sustainable approach beyond the initial firework of a training day or training session. Yeah, love this, love it. Well, how will we nurture it and continuously seek to grow it? And in my experience, the most powerful way to do that is to reflect in community. Not just think about a restorative idea. What did that look like this week in my class? What did that sound like in the staff room? I dropped the ball here, or I'm not sure, I'm having a challenge here. Have you guys any ideas? This went really well, you know, to reflect on our successes and our challenges. I now call it the B or P hive, you know, so when I work with schools or teams, we have what we call a B or P hive. It's the buzz, the activity of restorative practice, the B or P hive. I guess there's a couple of layers. The first layer is always for the team itself. In time, I think it can be really helpful to have a B or P hive and have a drop in and share that with other people in the community. But assembling the capacity of a team first and foremost, I think, is really key. Peer support, that idea of a buddy system, especially if we're looking to move beyond the idea of just, you know, transactional towards transformative. Reflecting in community, I think, is a huge enabler of growing capacity. And we mentioned that, you know, accountability towards a restorative approach, accountability in any way exists within a supportive environment. And I think a gorgeous way to support us is by sharing our restorative stories, you know, reflecting as a group on our story of implementing restorative practice and the challenges, the successes, reflecting on the stories of the young people we might be working with, you know. How dare he or she? Who does she think? Who does he? You know, and instead, I wonder what happened where that showed up. I wonder what the needs underneath that may be. And when I'm usually armored up and ready for, you know, ready for blood, having a team and a community that, you know, are seeking to support me to maybe de-escalate, to offer another lens, can be really, really powerful. So many things spring to mind. So many things spring to mind around stories, anecdotes that emerged for us as a community of teachers working together. I'm thinking of, you know, I might share this one if that's okay. You know, we talk about story, the power of story. So I might share one if that's okay, especially around that second pillar of working together, learning with one another, supporting each other. And so one of the teachers came in, you know, and she's a big advocate for restorative practice, but she also says that her natural disposition might be a little bit punitive. And so when we started, right, as a member of the team, she said, look, you know, I have success because most kids do what I say most of the time, you know, but there's 2 or 3 sucking the life out of me and going home with the migraine, and there has to be another way. And then when she was reflecting on her own practice, you know, I remember her sharing things like, you know, getting into those power struggles, that was never the plan. Reflecting on her own values as a teacher, as a person, you know, and wanting to commit to that restorative approach. And actually, she was such a powerful champion of it, even though her practice might waver. As she says herself, she'd come in, oh my God, I need this today. I need this today, you know, having that compass and that support. But there was one week she came in and she was reflecting about her student X, you know, a student she found very difficult to connect with. And she said, no, look, I tried to be restorative with him. And he told me to F off, you know, he told me to F off and to everybody. That's it, he's gone. So he was on his way to a suspension. And in our school at the time, there was a policy in place that said, you know, if a student cursed or at a teacher, they would be suspended, you know. And of course, you know, when she came in and she said, I tried to be restorative and it didn't work, you know. So one of the key things, I guess, as a team, reflecting on our own practice is, you know, how do we define success? You know, sometimes it might be where we think it's conformity, you know. Success is where the students did what I said, you know, it worked. And of course, trying to channel and challenge our idea of success, not being, you know, do what I say, but I'll ask you nicely. But you know, did I like who I was? Was I modeling my values? You know, who did I want to be in this situation? Because there's no unicorns or magic wands, as you will all know, when working restoratively. It can be hard. You know, I think it can be hard when we work with students with complicated or unmet needs. It can be challenging. You know, it can be hard if you're punitive, or hard if you were restorative. It's just pick your hard, you know. And I think a team coming together to reflect and support each other, you know, on that restorative journey, which can be hard sometimes, you know. But she came in anyway, and one of the colleagues, one of the team members said, invited her. He said, would you have done anything differently? You know, one of that restorative questions, you know, might you have done anything differently? And she says, well, maybe I wouldn't have had the conversation in front of the whole class, you know. And he invited her. He says, maybe would you have a chat with him again, just one-on-one, you know? And she's like, maybe, you know, I'll think about it. I'm thinking, I wasn't too convinced she was going to, you know. And you can understand, she's so armored up, you know. She's taking the risk for connection, and he tells her to F off, you know. So that accountability towards a restorative approach, I guess, needed nurturing and support. And she actually did go back to the young man, and she came back to us the following week. And she shared that when she did approach him on a one-to-one, she was very concerned about his response. And for her, she said, God, it seemed like he had a blackout or something. And she was concerned. She contacted our chaplain, who contacted, you know, the young man's social worker. And the young man spent a couple of days in hospital at that time because his mental health was very poor. And when she came back to speak to us, she just shared that, you know, if she wasn't doing this restorative approach, she said, I would have said, that's it. Last time you tell me to F off, you're gone. You're gone. You know, that'll teach you. And in this context, she's thinking, you know, I guess, you know, how damaging that may have been, you know, and when we think about meeting needs. And also, I remember her reflecting in her journal how lonely and afraid he might be. You know, I guess the compassion and that empathic lens was important for the student, yes, but also very much for her. It lives softer in her. You know, it's not as charged when we take it personally. I remember her saying, I used to think, how dare they? Like, who do they think they are speaking to me like that in my maths class? You know, that was the lens. And instead, I guess the approach we had as a team was engaging in those soft eyes turned to wonder. Those soft lens, like Parker Palmer says, had a big impact on our own stress levels, big impact on our own well-being, our own stress levels. But nurturing one another for that restorative lens. Relational thinking is the foundation of that restorative approach, thinking relationally, but trying to do that in community, I think, is really powerful, and reflecting in community is really, really powerful. And that's what our BRP Hive is all about. Like I said, I'll share a little handout in case you found it helpful, because you don't have to use I didn't use these rigid restorative me, or just coming together with a cup of tea, you know, is what we need. Breaking bread, I can't cook, you know. My sister feeds me most of the time, if I told you the truth, but I could make one thing. So I made this porridge bread that they all loved, you know. So I'd bring in the porridge bread every week, and then people, I'll bring in a bit of hummus. So we had our little party, you know. We did it on a Monday lunch. But you know, that idea of coming together to reflect, creating a space where we enjoy each other's company, I think as a foundation to building a team, it can be very, very helpful and very powerful. When I work with the teams, the 3 pillars, the third pillar is that idea of that ongoing maybe mentorship. In my context, I guess I offer what I call restorative cafes, where I meet the team, but it doesn't have to be something. It doesn't have to be that. You could have your own version of that, you know, whether you're connecting in with somebody else just to support us on that journey. And it could be, you know, another school, it could be another buddy, or indeed it might be a network in your environment or context, or maybe that's something RPI offers, or whatever the case might be. I love Mark put in a fab book. I'm a huge fan of Joe Brummer too, and you know, that trauma-informed RP school. It's a super book, and you know, having some sort of support for mentorship such as that might work really well. What's porridge bread? So it's supposed to be healthy bread until you put the butter on it, you know. But the porridge, it's porridge and yogurt really, and cinnamon. That's basically the nuts and bolts of it, but it's the only thing I could ever make. And they loved it. So in other words, sometimes they'd come because they were hungry on a Monday lunchtime. Oh, listen, we go for the porridge bread. But they're I guess the 3 key pillars, you know, of what I offer. And again, that BRP hive being really, really key and essential. And I'll share that with Marg and Sue afterwards. In case you might find the top, I call it the top tips, just little things that you might consider, you know. Essentially, it's a guided professional learning community. You know, that's what I did my research on, and the roots of what I do now is based on that. But essentially, you know, coming together to reflect, that idea community, having shared norms and values, and of course the restorative values being our compass, you know. The idea of trying to acquire skills and knowledge, like through Joe Brummer's book, one of Marg's books, whatever source you perhaps seek or that you find nourishing, having something to support our skills development, and collaborating to reinvent practice, like that example where the teacher says to teacher 5, am I allowed to say the name? I'm not sure. Where when the teacher says, would you consider having a chat with him again by yourself? You know, just trying to support each other through our reflections, through our dialogue. Very, very powerful. So that is the team. And I guess how you assemble a team might be different in each context. So this is what I do. We do a whole staff introduction, or something for the whole staff. And then, you know, invite people maybe to join a team from a little bit of an informed stance. Again, you might already have something in place. You might have a lot of prior knowledge in your school, but just doing something to build that shared literacy. What is that restorative approach, or to tap into that? And again, assemble a team of people that might be interested. I guess what's helpful for me is that I kind of share the time commitment, or you know, what might be required on such a team, but for the team to go iteratively, but to have initial commitment, I think, of what that looks like is important. So I offer that 20-hour implementation, so people know that this is what I'm investing my energy in. But you will have your own, whatever your own version might be, that we're committing to, you know, engage with this book as a compass, and to meet how many times to chat and reflect, you know. I think it would be important that people would know what such a commitment might be like in your context. And then again, to have that idea of maybe one or two people to lead the team. And again, that's kind of what it looks like in my context. And you might think, what would be transferable for you? The benefits, of course, adopting that relational lens. I might be quiet for a minute. I'll let you read that, because I've chatted about that a bit, but I might just let you read it yourself, just to kind of consolidate and summarize what we were chatting about. I guess one of the key things that I'd support the team, the reason why I created that course called Restorative Me, is that idea of the self, you know, my own practice, my own conflict literacy skills, my own relational thinking, because it's not about something we do to the kids or with the kids. It's of course, the starts with the self. So I think, and the reason why I do the work I do is because I believe in it. But one of the key things was how it nurtured our own self-care, our own well-being. And that has been, like I said, my experience. And the team, when that foundation is in place, then maybe it might be a strong position to then support other stakeholders at a school-directed pace when the time is right. But nurturing the capacity of a team first is really important. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to do another little connect and reflect, if you didn't mind, just to kind of download that or to contextualize that, and to give you a break from my voice. Although I love somebody in the chat box mentioned that you went to see Belfast at the weekend. I'm dying to see it. I haven't seen it myself. It's a movie that I'm really looking forward to seeing too. So in our next connect and reflect, I'm going to invite you. What did you want to be as a kid? I wanted to be a nun or Whitney Houston. It was one or the other, you know. How about you? And where are you currently on your RP journey in your school organisation? You may have tapped into this in the last session, but I wanted to give you an opportunity in case, considering, right, well, what next steps, looking forward, you know. We often, that restorative approach, go past, present, future. So maybe looking into the future, moving forward from today, you know, what might your next steps be? And do you have any questions, you know? And if you do, you can use the post-it, and I'll try and make sure to nod towards them and integrate them in the rest of our kind of closing session. But that's the invitation. So I see you're still on the Jamboard, which is brilliant. I'll pop the link in again just in case somebody's missing it, but it looks like most of us are on there, which is great. Hopefully they're going well. So I popped it in there. I'm going to, again, shuffle up the rooms. So lucky dip, see who you get this time, and I'll see you back here. I'm going to keep this one, you know, 3 to 4 minutes. I'll give you the little minute nod. So what you want to be as a kid, and what might your next steps be? Do you have any questions? See you back in a couple of minutes. Recreate the room. There we go.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
How are we?
Hi.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, is everyone living their lifetime dream that they wanted to be as a kid?
I have no idea what I wanted to be as a kid. It was too long ago. I can't remember.
I think I kept on changing all the time. I remember at one stage wanting to be an archaeologist. That one is when I was really interested in history, in ancient history. I think I wanted to be a photographer at one stage when I was interested in photography. What about you?
Of your Well, I will share something that I had at one of my trainings the other day. One of the teachers I was doing the training with said his 5-year-old daughter wanted to be a unicorn, and he wasn't sure how to tell her that that might not be possible. So I thought that was quite cute.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
So what was the other question? It was I think it was about
A bit about what you're doing, I think, in RP, wasn't it?
Next step.
Yeah.
next step.
Next step.
Yeah.
I really
Our next,
sorry, you go.
yeah, our next step is trying to just get our faculty with the knowledge about what restorative practices is, because we're right at the beginning, and then getting Margaret up here in May, which is not too far away actually. Margaret up in May to talk to us about what it is from a special ed lens. Yeah. So we discussed it in the last session.
So I was really, one of the things I think is I really related to in what Michelle was just saying was the whole thing around nurturing the ongoing discussions around RP and nurturing the sort of the people that are already involved and bringing other people on board, but having those lovely discussions and inviting people to talk about their experience. I think that is absolutely vital.
I think as part of the training, because I work at the Centre for Restorative Justice in South Australia, and so part of what we do going into schools is just to break down that barrier that it's just something that students and teachers do, that it's a whole community way of being, and that comes back to that nurturing aspect. So like if you are nurturing your colleagues, if you're nurturing your students, if you're nurturing yourself, you have that ability to be restorative without even sometimes knowing that you are.
Which sort of comes really back to the shared values and shared philosophy and keeping that alive in your school. And certainly if you're at the beginning stage in a school, it's developing that, connecting hearts and minds. I just love the way, I love that sort of the 3 pillars. I thought that is a really lovely, a very logical progression in terms of relationship building across the school.
Very much so.
So where are you, Paris?
I'm on the Gold Coast, but I don't know, I feel like I don't know much about the restorative practice at all, and I have a feeling that we've kind of jumped in on the wrong PD. Do you know what I mean? Like we thought it would be more learning about like putting it into practice and what exactly it is. So there's a few of us, I'm not sure about your other meetings, but there's a few of us from our school, Trinity, on the Gold Coast. So yeah, I'm still definitely learning things, but my understanding of restorative practice is still
Welcome back. I'm smiling. I was smiling at some of your shares here. So I might just for the audio, I think we're good. So hopefully you got to share some of your next steps there, or thinking maybe strategically what might the next step be. I always think, think big and act small, the small little iterative steps that are so important, that don't keep us feeling so overwhelmed. What might be a small next step. Again, I'll tap in that I've popped that PDF in the chat box around the BRP Hive, and I'll share it with Marg afterwards in case some of you can't download it, and that idea of maybe I just wanted to offer a couple of minutes around what maybe we do following the team. So when the team have established itself, and had a bit of time to support their own capacity building. And I think the next step often when I work in schools is we kind of support that journey to a whole school approach, which again is that long-term journey and a long-term commitment, no magic wands. But offering those implementation pathways, not a train and hope for the best, but implementation pathways. And a team is a huge important pillar of that implementation pathway. I have an online learning platform, and I offer a team capacity to work with other stakeholders. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time chatting about that, just want to give you an idea of it, because it may not be as transferable. You'll think of what would be helpful in your context, but I have an Ubuntu learning platform, and again there's resources, webinars, maybe that restorative me course, the gatherings like the BRP Hive, student curriculum programs, ways to share the RP love, essentially, which is what we say is our third pillar, and it's still growing and iterating, but essentially working with the teams, working together is what we're doing. That's the work that we're doing, partnerships, partnering the school, because essentially what we're trying to do is, again, move away from that misimplementation model that Gregory and Evans talk about, and support us with that idea of ongoing, iterative, and meeting the needs in the context of the school. We can say one thing, but how are we implementing it in a restorative way? I'm just looking at some of the questions there. I guess I think about offering experiences. When I think about resistance and challenges, and sure, of course there will be, don't we know that? And again, I think about my area of influence, and starting with the self, I guess, can be really powerful. Coming together with a group of other people who might be interested, powerful. When I think about I guess my entry point often when I talk with staff is that idea of supporting ourselves, not another thing that we have to do, another thing. Restorative practice, I think, is the foundation, the carpet that we build everything else upon. I think not everyone might. So I always my entry point is the idea of us as a staff ourselves, but to offer relational experiences. I don't think that facts and figures always open hearts and minds, but offering relational experiences. So for example, that idea of a BRP hive where people might experience it in a positive way, and then how that can ripple out it can be very transformative. And when I work with staffs, again, often there might be that resistance, but I might do that 5-minute check-in, like we did, for example, your celebrity crush growing up, whose poster would be on your wall, and associate that with restorative practice, not just questions we ask kids when they're in trouble, but to offer experiences that are relational. And that idea of promoting that equity of voice, that even when I'm thinking about my staff, there were a number of teachers that felt, no, zero tolerance is what we want to do. Zero tolerance is the approach to go. And our intention was very often the same. The intention to have a school where we're happy and well and where people can flourish. Our values often aligned. The pathways to that were definitely different. So opening up opportunities to listen to one another and to reflect on our values, I think can be unifying or uniforming. But, every context, of course, is different, and, it can be really challenging. You had to feel the shift, an emotional experience. Yeah, lovely, lovely, Marg. And again, they're often in relational emotional experience. They're often conduced, not in a factual way, but in an experience, a restorative experience. Again, the 3 pillars, I guess, I'm thinking about the 3 pillars I use for that whole school approach. We have the learning platform, like I said. We have the team mapping a journey for a school. The different role of a team, I've already spoke to you about growing our own practice, supporting one another. But role 3, when the time is right, might be what I call sharing the RP love, bringing other people on board. And that might be as simple as our BRP hive now allowing, having a drop in for others that might come and go, or it could be more structured and formalized. I guess when I think about sharing the RP love with staff, that idea of, our CPD sessions really important, but simple things like, I'll tell you 2 things that I found to work really nicely recently I highlight them here. Doing little read dates with the staff. So inviting them to read something, let's say you have a meeting or a staff meeting or whatever the case might be, to read something for 5 minutes and to have a chat about it for 5 minutes in a group of 3, but not to think about RP as a whole staff 2 or 3 times a year when we do our CPD webinars, but the short, consistent opportunities. Again, the 5-minute conversation starters. So on the platform, I have what I call 5-minute conversation starters. So I create little conversation starters for a staff meeting. So there might be a video, I have a 1-minute video, I might chat to them and like what we did today, invite them a relational lens, and then maybe ask them something like one thing that went well today, or one way you keep your calm, or something that might be connected to a restorative approach. But again, the hope is that in groups of 3 or 4, like we did today, for 5 minutes to start a meeting, you have a chat that makes you smile and maybe taps into something about RP. And they maybe don't answer the question I've asked or invited, and that's okay. But just to kind of iterate and do things consistently, I think is really important. You know, the importance of small, consistent steps. And these two I found to be really nice, you know, and staff tend to like them. But it's a very non-threatening way to kind of integrate that maybe restorative experience and to keep RP on the agenda. In a way that's also conducive to all the other million things we have to do as a whole staff when we come together, you know, sharing the RP love. The third pillar is the partnerships. So again, I link all the school leaders together, and once a month we have our Ubuntu Leader Community Cafe. Again, it's in the timetable before school commits. They know that these will take place, and that's my version. Your version might be something totally different. Again, many of you might have connections of even today, you might have formed connections, or just trying to invite other people from other schools who might be on a journey to chat together. And there's 3 other webinars coming up, you know, I think in this series, gorgeous way to connect in with other people on that journey, whatever version that might be, I think can be really, really powerful. And again, looking at the benefits for that whole school approach, you know, for all stakeholders. So again, I'll be quiet and just invite you to have a little look at this. Building that efficacy, I think, is really important. That shared philosophy, and of course, sharing it with the stakeholder at a school directed pace, and then linking it into policy reform, you know, authentic policy reform when the time is right, you know, when we've attached our meaning to the practices, and we can do that in an authentic way. Finally, thinking about that idea of measurement, or thinking about our journey, what, how, when. I'm still working on this myself. It's still something that I'm growing and my own capacity around and working with schools on. Currently, we use like, you know, we have a needs assessment survey, or we have, you know, where are we in our journey and where are we going, you know? There's an example of just taking a snapshot, you know, where are we and where are we going? Schools sometimes, you know, measure that idea of suspensions, detentions, you know, incidences. But of course that, you know, qualitative stuff where we're sharing and reflecting, like that story I shared about the young man whose mental health was a bit poor, and the teacher who spoke about the compassion she felt for him as opposed to that charge. Those anecdotes are so powerful for that compass and for that continuous commitment. The next time it's like, would you remember, you know, do you remember that? Look, we'll try again. We'll give it a go again. There's nothing more powerful than those stories, you know, but again, trying to capture things that might be important for a school, and that it's iterative and ongoing. You know, I think that might be important for us as a staff, and then indeed with our students and other stakeholders. If I was thinking, I'm just keeping a little eye there. Great, yeah, lovely shares there in the chat box. Thanks so much. If I asked you maybe to think about something that might be in your you know, maybe your head or your heart. Often I might end with a one-word quiz if I was in a class, you know, or I might end with a one-word quiz if I was sharing in a circle. But thinking about maybe a takeaway for you, you know. Here's my invitation. I'm not going to do a breakout because I'm obviously thinking about our time too, but maybe inviting you to think about this. And if you feel inspired to share something in the chat box, great. If you don't, no pressure, you know, but I'm just going to give us, I'm going to put a minute on my timer, a minute quiet, you know, and then indeed we can use the chat box to share if we wish, or not. If you do not, you might just invite you to have a quiet think. Something you'll do to be restored with yourself today. So I'm thinking, will I go back to bed for an hour before my 9 o'clock? So something I'm going to do to be restored with myself today, and maybe a takeaway or an insight, you know, something that's not in your head or in your heart following our session. So the invitation is to have a think about that for a minute. And if you wish to pop it in the chat box, great. And if not, that's okay too. So we'll just share a minute quiet, maybe to reflect. Okay, so I'll continue to read on your pop in the chat box. Some of you are off to the pub. Take me with you. So Marg, I might hand it back over to you there. If you want, you know, I'm so grateful to you all. Thanks so much for sharing the space and my morning, your afternoon. Marg, will I hand it over to you there to if you wanted to say anything, maybe to bring us to a close.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. And look, we were absolutely, our little team that was Sue and Graham and I were absolutely spot on in inviting you to be our inaugural, you know, webinar one for the year. And look, there's some lovely messages in all of that, and you do it in a way that is so Michelle Stowe, which is so utterly delightful. But I'm reminded that, you know, whether we're talking about a school or a team within a school, that we have to start with us. We've got to look after ourselves. We've got to, you know, do what we need to do to be our best selves. And so the layering of that, the kind of development of the team around, you know, being reflective of our own practice and then learning with each other and then continuing to challenge and support is absolutely fantastic. And I just, you really have to do it to understand that restorative practice is really good for us, you know, physically and for our soul, really. Particularly the business about think big and act small, never start too big, otherwise you die of indigestion. But what I've really enjoyed mostly is how sensible this whole idea of an RP, you know, structure and purpose, how realistic it is, how practical it is, and keeping in mind that we've got to walk our own talk. So a profound thanks from all of us, Michelle. You've done it again, as you usually do. So I'm sure you'll have some contact. People have talked about whether or not they may have a copy of your slides. We can talk about that later.
Sure.
But while that everyone is here, and you might have your pens and your diaries, our next session will be on probably around the same time, 4 to 5:30 on June the 21st, when we will invite the divine Nathan Wallace, our neuroscience educator from New Zealand, to make the link between restorative practice and how our brains work. So I think that's probably about us, about it for us. But if Sue, Michelle and I could stay behind just for a minute, that would be wonderful. The rest of you travel safely when you drive home or whatever it is you're doing this evening, and go forth and restore, really. So see you later.
Bye everybody. Bye. Have a good evening.